Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the already third workshop of today on the main stage. Now, before we start, just a quick question. Who is from the Netherlands here? So I think everybody knows John Voppen. He's the CEO of ProRail. ProRail is the infrastructure manager of the Netherlands. Is anybody here not from the Netherlands? All right, okay, that's good. So we have some people outside the country, but a lot of them in the Netherlands. You will also be able to ask questions. We're going to have a very long interview with the CEO of ProRail. This is your chance. If you have sharp questions, and he said it, you can be sharp. So everything is allowed. But let's first start. John Voppen, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's good to be on the RailTech again, to be here in physical form. Last year we had the online edition, but it's much nicer to be here just in person and to see all of you and all the people here around. So it's very good to be here today.
Yeah, and I think you've been almost at every RailTech so far, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been with ProRail now for 17 years. So I think when did the RailTech start? Is it
25 years ago, but not with us.
25 years. Yes. So I missed the first 8 then. I cannot do anything about that then.
Yeah, no, that's okay. We're glad that you're here. And it's very important that you're here because ProRail makes a lot of difference in the Netherlands. And one of the first topics I wanted to discuss with you is a topic that is currently being discussed at the conference upstairs, long-distance trains. You already participated at the conference upstairs. Maybe you can share some main takeaways with us from this morning.
Yes, I was talking this morning on the international passengers trains. It's good to have it also to talk also about freight, because who's from the freight sector here? Okay, I'll do it for you then. But this morning was mostly about passengers, and I was stressing the importance, especially in these times of war, these times of crisis, also from a sustainability point of view. And international travelers passengers is really the solution to what we have now in Europe, and especially also in the Netherlands. If you see that we really think people should come from the plane into the train. But that's asked a lot from us as an industry, as a sector, but also, of course, from the government. And I was telling this morning that there are still a lot of trains who are not full. So if we can have better ticketing, we can get more people in the trains. I was telling that we have a lot of more room on our infrastructure to have more international trains.
You do? Okay. Because
yeah, we do.
I always thought that the Dutch network was very congested.
Yeah, the Dutch network is very full. But you see, especially for the international trains, the system we have in the Netherlands is that we have every hour, we copy it through the day, more or less. So if, for example, the Eurostar goes in 1 hour, we can have the Eurostar in every hour. And even so, mostly in every half an hour. We have to be a little bit careful with freight trains, but we can still have, especially international trains, they are not every hour, so we can have more even in the current system. Yeah.
And how much more could we have based on the current infrastructure?
Well, I don't know the exact percentage, but I think we could have 20–30% more.
Okay.
But depends on, well, you can calculate yourself. We can look up how many Eurostars there goes a day, every day, and which hours they go and which they don't go. But the same is for the train to Brussels. I was yesterday to Brussels, and it's a huge success because I tried to get back with the Thalys, but first of all, I couldn't find a seat, but I could find one seat to go back from Brussels to Amsterdam. So the trains which we have are fully booked at this moment.
Yeah, so there's a lot of demand for it.
It is, yeah.
When you say 25–30% more is what we can do right now, what do we need to do in order to reach that? Given the current infrastructure.
Yeah, I think what is important to realize that the investments in the trains are huge investments. And what we need is to make sure that the rail operating companies are helped to take the risk. Because it's quite a risk as a private company most of the times, or being a big company from one country, to make the move and to buy new trains, which takes some time in Europe, and then take the risk that they will be full. But I think it's like a circle. If you have more trains, if you have a better product, the people will come. But for example, this morning, after my presentation upstairs, we also had a presentation about a network in France, where we have huge opportunities to go from Luxembourg even to Barcelona, but there's still infrastructure missing, but also a lot of marketing missing. So I think if we increase the number of trains, we should also increase the marketing we make for this international trains, because if we have the really easy ticketing, the good marketing, and we have the product which is reliable over the day, then we can have a lot more passengers, I think, from air to rail.
Yeah. So good marketing and support for the operators. Coming back to the marketing, but for the operators, what kind of support can you give them?
Well, I think we as ProRail, we have to make sure that we have the good infrastructure, because if the infrastructure is not reliable, it's very difficult for a rail operating company to do business. And we do the best we can. But it's not only that we have to do it in the Netherlands, we also have to do it on a European level. And for example, this morning I was telling, if you would start the timetabling, not country by country, but you would start with a timetable on a European level, we could have much better international trains. For example, with the current infrastructure, if we would start with an international timetable, the Eurostar could win around 20 minutes of travel time without any real investment in infrastructure. But well, if every country starts with their own timetabling, it's quite difficult to make it sure.
Yeah, it's a kind of a no-brainer, but yet it's not happening, because we talked about it many times. We've been talking about it for many years. Is anything changing?
Yeah, I feel some change. But I also have to be honest. I told it this morning. Well, my attitude is we need to improve international trains in Europe. It needs to be a commodity. It needs to be a product like we run trains in the Netherlands. It needs to be in Europe. And it's not only for our generation, but also for the next generation and our children. So that's what keeps me going. Because sometimes it can also be a little bit frustrating to make it happen. Because one of the other things which sounds so simple, why can't we all speak English in Europe? Drivers and traffic controllers, and why it needed to be all in the national language. Those kind of changes are quite difficult, because aviation really started as a global product, and you see rail really started as a regional even, municipal even, and then a country. So every country does it on its own way. So we have to really break the boundaries there.
Yeah. And that comes to the marketing then, because there you also have to make a sort of a mind shift maybe.
Yeah, we do.
Is that already happening among the people who would be needed in the train?
What we saw last year with the European rail, Year of the Rail, it helped, because it got all the people together. We had those two trains. We had the train to Glasgow. We had the Connecting Europe Express, and it brings people together. But I still think we need a combination to brave people in the industry, really be brave, because we have to make those jumps, and we also need the politicians. So we need Europe, we need the national, because if we have if the national is more important than the European, we will not make the change. Yeah. So Europe will have to put a little power, and we have to, in all the different countries, have to be a little bit more willing to make the change.
Yeah. Now I'm going to make it a little bit more personal, because you're a policymaker, I'm a journalist, so we talk about it, but we're not doing it as people maybe. When I see people around me, everybody right now is talking about vacation, summer is coming, and everybody's talking about all those flights which might not happen, which tells me that everybody is still so much into those flights. And not a lot of people are taking the train for a vacation. Is that something, for example, that you would do?
Yeah, well, let me start with my daughter. My daughter just graduated from high school. So she was doing a high school travel. And I got her so far that she was taking the train to Barcelona. So I was almost there. Well, I also said that I sponsored it if they took the train. So I had a little bit power over here. But in the end, it's so difficult to book a train ticket and take so much time to go to Barcelona that she took the plane anyway. So I stood at 5 o'clock in Schiphol, waiting in terrible lines to bring her to Schiphol. So first of all, we need to make the change. I myself, I have been on a holiday in the train more times. But the one problem I have is I have a dog. So also with a dog in the train, I do it in the Netherlands, but I don't know. Does international dog travel in the train? No.
Maybe a good question to ask the audience is, who took an international long-distance train in the last year? Can I just do a quick round to hear some experiences? You were the one? No? Okay. How was it?
It was very good. I take the train to London, and I said, "That's nice, but I don't have to wait longer outside." But when I went back, I have to wait in London on the station. Yeah, not too long, no.
Good experience. Somebody else wants to share an experience of a long distance journey? Some tips on how it could have been better? I saw some fingers, but now all of a sudden they're all gone.
It is the moment you jumped off the podium.
Yeah, that is suddenly everybody was quiet. But the dog is an issue. And I can share my experience. I would love to travel with my kids, but with all that luggage and the kids, and there's not really a good space for luggage, and maybe a tent even. Is there a plan to, I know you're an infrastructure manager, but to make that easier? Is there talk of that?
Yeah, there's a lot talking about luggage, to have it more easy in the train. And also, well, we believe in the train, of course, but we all will believe in the combinations. Why can't we combine the plane and the train? But then also you need to take care of the luggage, because you don't want to have your luggage and your kids from the train to the plane and bring it all in. So those kind of simple changes, who seem simple, we really need to make those kind of changes, I think. Yeah. And if your children, my children are now 16 and 17, and then it's very nice to travel by train again.
So I have something to look forward to. Mine are 4 and 7. But back to those operators, because there's something that also, it's a concern that is spoken of, is that the big operators, for example, NS, a railway company, is able to run long-distance trains, but they're dominating the market. So there's very little room for those smaller parties. Is that something you recognize?
Yeah, I do recognize. And it's also what I talked about, because the huge investments you have to make for a train. But if you're looking at European Sleeper, for example, they are a new player, I think. And they bring the night trains back in Europe, which I love. I think it's a very nice product to have. And I even heard rumors now that they will have a night sleeper to Barcelona. So
your daughter?
It's just not in time, but we could have it. And I think those kind of parties are now coming back. And we spent quite some time in ProRail to accommodate those railway operating companies.
And what do you mean by accommodating?
Because it's a special product. And it's quite difficult to plan, because if you think about a night train, you think we have enough room on the network. We do have, but they always arrive in the morning traffic hour. So you have to do quite some special things and to clean the trains. So in our planning department, we have 3 dedicated people for these kind of services. So for the special trains. And by accident, I spoke to them last Friday, and they showed me how to puzzle and how they make these trains happen. We have a lot of work to do there, but I think there's a future for these special products. Yeah.
And there is room on the infrastructure for those smaller parties?
Not always, not always. But is there anyone from NS in the room? This morning I had Ilko, my colleague, board member of the NS, but I think we need to be a little bit more flexible, because if we keep in the strict rules of every hour the same trains, it's going to be very difficult for new products to make. But if you see, for example, in the puzzle for a sleeper, if you can change one train in the morning, you can have one sleeper, because it's only one train. We don't have 10 sleepers a day to Barcelona. We probably have only 1 or 2. So we need to be a little bit more flexible. But we also need new regulation, because we have a European regulation how we can divide our tracks to the different rail operators, and we have to do it 1 year in advance. That doesn't work for a lot of those new companies. So we need to have flexibility to change those things in the later phases of this process.
Is there lobbying for that?
Yeah, there is a lot of lobbying, and we are in the right moment, because the coming years there will be new legislation in the Netherlands based on the railway packets and the 4th railway packets, and we will have new legislation. And also we are building new ICT systems to be more flexible in what's it called, timetable redesign projects in Europe. So we will be more flexible, because we need to change that. Also for freight, which we talk about later, but also for freight rail operators, it's the most of them don't know what they do 1 year in advance. And if you divide all the capacity 1 year in advance, it's not working for them.
Now, a very critical topic, the price.
Yes.
We all know that if you take a train throughout Croatia to Albania or Greece, you might spend less than 50 euros. But you can take a train from here to Germany and you spend around the same money. Is that something that is likely to change?
I think it will change. I think it will change. But it's always a difficult discussion if you compare the plane to the train, which is the fair price. And maybe the train has to become a little bit cheaper, On the other hand, the plane is so ridiculous cheap at this moment because all the subsidiaries and all the special arrangements we have. If we take sustainability really serious in Europe, I really think we should also increase the price of traveling by plane. Because if we keep it like this, well, it's very difficult to be competitive if you want to ask a normal fair price, I think.
But you think so, but how can you make sure that's going to happen then?
I can do a lot in the rail industry, but I'm not saying I have the power to change this in the aviation. I can't change that. But you see the climate change. You see different. What's happening now is that Schiphol cannot grow anymore. That we want different planes. That we don't want the short planes. But I think government needs to do really the step up. But you see an environment where we can make those changes. I was making the joke this morning, but it was a little bit of a difficult joke. But normally I'm always saying I'm not happy with the travel time to Berlin. We take 6 hours by train to go to Berlin, and I think it's too long, and we try to make it shorter. But in these days, with the waiting lines in Schiphol, the train wins even from the plane to Berlin. So that's a positive thing then from all the crisis in the Netherlands.
It's a good momentum, but still we need to work on that price then.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure what is needed by politicians to make that change. Because I know there's a lot of lobby for aviation, of course, and there's a lot of interest. But if we want to change it, we have to change it.
There's currently this offer that you can travel throughout Germany for €9.
Yes, it's nice, isn't it?
It's very nice. My mom is on the train right now in Germany on that ticket. Is that something that could happen in the Netherlands?
I'm not sure, but if you see what positive effect the student cards did in the Netherlands, that all the students could travel by train, that's already now for a very long time, because I can remember that also in my student time it was introduced then. I think those initiatives are very good, and we should have, like the NS is already doing, and Arriva also, is to reduce prices on the non-rush hours. It's a really good idea, because if you look at our whole railway system, we invest for the 2 hours in the morning and the 2 hours in the afternoon. And we have a lot of unused capacity still on the different days of the parts of the day. Even in traffic hours, we have a lot of capacity. Because, yes, it's very busy from, let's say, Alkmaar to Amsterdam. But from Amsterdam to Alkmaar in the morning rush hours, there's a lot of capacity left. So if we can do something with the price and have very nice, attractive offers for using that unused capacity, it would be great, I think.
That would be up to NS then?
Yeah, but I think it's also up to NS, but also to the government. Because I'm also lobbying a lot for price differentiation that we can have. But there is some political rule in the Netherlands that it should be the same for everyone. So it's quite difficult, like it's on the road, to have price differentiation on different trains and a different... but I really think we should go that way. Because in that way we can use the capacity and the enormous investment we made in the Netherlands for this infrastructure, we can use it much better.
Okay, before we move on to the second topic, is there anything you would like to ask John about long distance traveling? Nothing? All right then.
You wanted to talk about the international freight transport. I was curious what you wanted to talk about there.
Well, I can do. Can we do the freight right now or?
Freight.
Yeah, freight trains.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I think also if you look at the international, freight transport is from the Netherlands. It's almost all is international. So we have very limited national. We have some, of course, to the chemical cluster in Limburg, but the most of it is international. And I think we already did a lot of work in the corridor work with the neighbor country. We are a little bit farther with the international operating of the freight trains than with the passenger trains. But I think one of the big improvements we can make is in European traffic control. So. I don't, to avoid the misunderstandings, I don't believe in one building somewhere in Europe where we do all the traffic control for all the trains in whole Europe. That will never happen, and it's not the right solution. But there can be a lot of more collaboration between the traffic control centers in the different countries, so we can have a much more seamless ride for the trains. Because if we can have a more seamless ride, then it's a lot of energy profit in energy use because the freight trains, you don't want them to stop. You want them to start driving and go on until the final destination. So we can win a lot in that area. And also, but I talked about that more often, if you can have the 740-meter trains, we can be much more efficient because we can have from 600 to 740 longer trains where the locomotives are the most expensive part which determine the price of the container or the bulk transport. So we can win also over there. And for the people not so in freight, you should think, what's the problem with a longer train? Why can't you just have a longer train? Because especially on the different places where the train have to stop or where you have to make the train, also the tracks to manage the train have to be a little bit longer. So it's quite an investment you have to make. So European traffic control, good collaboration, speaking all English, because that also is very good for the cost of the driver. And 740-meter trains, it will help international freight trains.
Yes,
okay, sorry. Yeah, one more thing. Yeah, you get me started now. But and at ProRail, we really have to do something on the infrastructure in the harbour. And we are very hard working on it. We know it does need work, and we are now in an innovative manner very quickly improving the infrastructure in the harbour. But we still have some problems now, but we're increasing it as rapid as we can to make it very reliable, because the last mile or the first mile is very important there.
What's the problem? That's a very good question. What's the problem?
Now, to put it very simply, we didn't do enough maintenance the last 15 years. I can make it nicer, but the truth is, that's the truth.
And why is that? Why was that a lack of knowledge? Was it a lack of vision? How can you explain that happened?
I think it was, to be completely honest, and I'm in the right environment here, it was not enough attendance to freight trains, because we were too much focused on passenger trains. Then we make some governance changes, from ProRail to KeyRail to ProRail. But there were a lot of circumstances, because also in the harbour we know we don't drive 140 kilometers an hour, so you can do different kind of maintenance, but you still have to do the maintenance. We see very strict regulations about fire equipment and so on. So it's a combined situation which built up the last 15 years, which we now acknowledge, I think, the last 3-4 years, and are working very hard to make also the situation in the harbour as reliable as possible.
Yeah, and still, because now this realization is there and you're doing a lot of work, but still, the harbour line drops out frequently, and there is a lot of frustration among rail freight carriers. It's a pity they're not among them, but I'll just say what they say. They're very mad. Do you understand their frustration?
Oh yes, I do. And I think one of the good things is when we started a couple of years ago to start to work, we also invited them on the table to do the prioritizing together with us, because we really believe they are part of the system. I also always believe in this kind of railway system, and they ask them to help us to do the right priorities and to do the work. And yes, they are very, how do you say? They are sometimes very frustrated, but they put it on the table, and I like that. It's not behind your back. You get it just right in your face. So, and they're right, and we have to improve them.
Yeah. And what do you need right now to make a better railway infrastructure in the port of Rotterdam?
Well, the most important thing is now the fire requirements. So we are working very hard to have the fire requirements ready by the 1st of January this year.
Is that still likely to happen? 1st of January?
It's likely to happen. Yeah. We're doing exceptional work there. We do it. Some things we do twice as quick as possible. But to give you an example, and I hope all the passengers people are still with me. But to give you an example, sometimes the tracks are very close to the highway, so we also need to make arrangements with Rijkswaterstaat to have some fire car on the highway to do, because there's no room between the highway and the track. So it sounds always very simple, but that's my experience in 70-year rail business. If you look into the details, it's quite very complex, and you have a lot of work to do. But those are the first priorities. And what we do is that's actually happened a couple of weeks ago. we changed, I think, 28 switches in the Pernes environment. And I was there together with also people from, from Rail Goods to look at the work and how we do the work there. And we do it very quick, and I was impressed to see how we change it. But there's more to do coming years, yes.
Yeah. And what do you need from the ministry to accomplish these things?
Well, I get a lot from the ministry. So they are very well aware of the importance of freight. We traveled together after the last 3 years, so to say. And they also dedicate a lot of funds and money now to make the change in the harbour. So I'm very happy with how they help me and how they helped the industry the last couple of years. But they do need to make the next step because freight always is difficult to put on a political agenda because the freight itself, it doesn't vote.
Yeah, but what is the next step?
Well, the next step is also to get to get freight transport competitive. Because if you look at a container on a truck, it's still, well, I think more than, significantly cheaper than on rail. And that's because of all kinds of regulations. Because, for example, a driver needs to be more educated on a train, and you have to pay access charges on a train. So you see there's a difference in equality between the two modes of transport. Yeah. And I really want to have them on the same level so that the people who choose for the mode of transport don't have the price component, which is very important in freight, to make their choice on, just on quality.
And do you mean they need to be subsidized or compensated? Or?
Yeah, it's the same with the plane. Either you make it a level playing field by having the car taking the price which it really should cost it, or you should compensate and subsidize, I think, the rail freight, because it's so much safer, so much better for the environment. So I really want to, we will have 50% growth in 2030 already, if we look at all the predictions. So even to have the growth on the tracks, it's a lot of work. And if we want the model shift, which I really would like after 2030, or as soon as possible, we even have to make the better change. And it's a lot about price.
Yeah. There are probably not a lot of people in the rail freight sector, but are there any questions or thoughts about this? Yes or no?
Did I answer your question?
Now maybe, as a consultant, I do work a bit in the rail freight sector, but say that this will be a success, and we hope so. Is there then this excess capacity available, or will we then be running within a couple of years into discussion, it's a success, you managed to make the operation more effectively, but there is no ample capacity anymore, that we're running into that problem again? Or is that only a nightmare, and will the reality be better?
That's a good question. Not a nightmare, but it's always good to look ahead. The answer to that is depending on the destination. So if you look at Rotterdam Harbour and the Betuwe route, on the German side, they are now building the third track. So we will have a lot of trouble the coming years. But if that is finished, we will on that track have enough capacity. So there will be not the biggest problems. But if you look at the other area, especially Oldenzaal, and you look at also the number of houses we're going to build in the Rotterdam Dordrecht area, we do need new possibilities to go to the north of the Netherlands. So that's what we call about the new track we need for rail freight route. And that's a difficult discussion, because you're telling someone that because the importance of the Rotterdam Harbour and building houses in the west of the Netherlands, we have to build a freight track in the east of the Netherlands, and they will have the problems with the freight. So that's also a political discussion. But if we want to really grow in the future, we need this extra possibility in the north of the Netherlands. Yes.
And how can you make people in the east of the Netherlands sympathize with this thought?
First of all, we need to minimize the impact freight has. Most of all, I don't know the English word for the trembling.
The sound, the vibration.
The vibration, yes, thank you. So to reduce the vibration, we're really looking to innovative solutions there. And we also do a lot of studies to get the vibration level down, because I think that's one of the problems we have. We do have to do a lot of education, I think. That's not the right word, but to inform the people, because a lot of people are also afraid of the dangerous goods in the trains. And at the same time, the trains is by far the most safe way, together with the barge, to transport dangerous goods. So we also need to take away some feelings with people that it's dangerous where it's not dangerous, because we took a lot of precautions. But in the end, I think you can't take it away completely. Because, well, and then it's the task of the politicians, and we can help them with that. So maybe make a combination to get better possibilities for mobility, and at the same time have these freight tracks in the same deal. That's the way I think it works in the Netherlands.
Do you think this Noordtak of the Betuwe route is going to be there? This
Yes.
northern branch?
Yeah, I think it will be there. Yeah. If you look at how important sustainability is in the Netherlands, and how also the freight sector will grow, and that also the roads are really full and we cannot have all the trucks. Well, and the barge only works where there's water. If there's no water, you cannot have a barge. We will have to make this investment. If you ask me when it will be, it's more difficult. So it will take some time to take this decision in the Netherlands. Yes.
We talked about it this morning as well with Onno, actually. It was this cycle that we have, that you need more infrastructure in order to solve the problems. But for more infrastructure, you have to go through a lot of hassle, a lot of construction work periods like we see in Germany right now. Which challenges do you face when you want to have more infrastructure in the Netherlands?
Well, I think we just talk about more infrastructure because we need it for freight in the future. But our main tactic strategy is utilize the current existing infrastructure as much as possible. To do that, we need modernization of this infrastructure, and that's on all different levels. So if I start with the soil beneath the tracks, we see that this was built 170, 130, 100 years ago, and it was right for the amount of trains we drove at that moment. But we see now with the heavier trains, with the faster trains, more acceleration, more trains, we need to rethink the soil system under the ground, especially in the Netherlands, because it's it's a very, in some areas, it's a weak soil. So we need to invest in that. We need to invest in electricity. We need to invest in ERTMS, of course. And we need, and in this way, we can modernize this existing network. And I believe really we can have more trains on existing network than we do now. So that's the first step.
Yeah. And do you have the money for that?
No, we don't have the money for that. So
how much do you need for that?
We need 11 billion. And that's what I wrote a letter to the government, I think a couple of weeks ago, and I had this interview. And we do have, of course, a lot of money, because I'm quite happy the government really sees the importance of modernization, the importance of maintenance, and that's really changing now in the political environment. But we need more money to do it all. And I think the most important thing is to make the choices right now. Because if you make the choices what you want to do for the money you have, you also see what choices you can't make, and then you get a much better political environment to discuss about future investments.
And have you received a letter back?
No, I didn't. I did receive a lot of conversations, but I didn't receive a letter back yet. But I did see our state secretary. She was talking to our parliament, and I was seeing that she talked about some of the topics I heard. And I know, because I spoke to her a couple of times the last 2 weeks, that she's very pushing forward to have the maintenance, the modernization, the base network in place.
And the 11 billion.
And 11 billion is a lot of money. So the problem is, to be honest, if she gives me 11 billion tomorrow, we simply can't make this as industry. So that's what I also put in my letter. We can't do it all at the same time, because we don't have enough young people working in the industry. We don't have all the materials. We can't close the track for 2 years. So we need to do it with the shop open. So let's be also realistic in the sector and to do it step by step.
Yeah. So maybe 2 billion every year will be a good solution.
That's what we spend normally, yes.
Okay, 2 billion every year.
Ik heb een vraag over. I got a question about new upcoming technology like the Hyperloop. How do you look at it, as a competitor or as a possible partner for the solutions in the future?
Definitely a partner. So I always say we have no competition in public transport. Just take the best solution. Actually, the only competitor we have is individual transport. And then I don't mean the bicycle.
Yeah, because this morning we had this gentleman speaking about the Hyperloop, and he showed us what it would look like. I must admit, it's not the most beautiful thing to have in your backyard in the east of the Netherlands. It looks uglier than a train track.
Yeah, but if we could have it, it would be a great way of transportation. But and we do support it. We don't actually invest in it or something like that because we are really focused on the railway infrastructure. So we follow it, but it will take some time because before it's really operational. But it's perfect for international travel. And I think the Netherlands is the most destinations are too small in the Netherlands. Eh?
Yeah.
But if you can have this kind of system with more individualized transport and this quick travel times, it will be great for European travel in the future.
And would you be willing to share that 11 billion with Hyperloop?
If it's the better solution in the public transportation, I would. But to give you an example, which is more close by, for example, in the Amsterdam area, we did a study what's the best way to have more transportation in Amsterdam, and extending the North-South line, the subway system, it's a much better investment than putting it in heavy rail and having a separate tunnel in Schiphol. So we really support investing the money in the metro system and in the subway system in Amsterdam. And in that way, we can have some trains out of the tunnel and have more international trains. So we're always looking in ProRail to public transportation as a whole, and not always favorizing the railway product.
Yeah. All right. You already mentioned it. You don't have enough people to spend the 11 billion tomorrow. How is ProRail doing as an employer at the moment?
Well, I think we are a great employer. Well, I stayed there 17 years, so there's nothing else I can tell. But I see we are now able to get a lot of young talent to our company. So I'm really happy for that, that we can have the brightest, the best, interesting people to our company. It's a complex, it's a nice. We help for the solution for the Netherlands and for Europe. So it's a great place to work, and I see more and more young people having this purpose in mind when they applying for a job. In the past, they all want to work for Shell. Now I see a lot of people want to work in an industry which helps the people, or helps the society and sustainability in special. But my own company is not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is with the construction companies, to have those people with, what's it called in Dutch, MBO level, who really have to do the hard work during the nights, during the rain, to get them. Because more and more people don't want to work in the night, in the weekends. And a lot of people are also looking at the energy sector. So we really should have an effort to get those people in the railway sector, to make it more comfortable for them, to make sure that we also have to work during the day. Well, of course, I want to have trains in the day, but we have to find a balance, a better balance. And also, we will have to have innovations like robotics, more and more also in the work outside, because it's quite labor heavy still, the work we do.
Yeah. Is there anyone in the room here who would like to work for ProRail and who can have a job interview after this workshop session? This is your chance.
But who's not work? The better question? Who's not working in the railway industry? Who's not working in the railway industry? Okay.
Our IT.
Do you want to work in the railway industry? Because that's the right question. Because if those people are working in the railway industry, I'm fine with it. They don't have to work for ProRail. ProRail is just one chain in the whole system, and the ecosystem is much bigger. And if we have enough people in the system, it would be great. I'm still interested why nobody wants to work with ProRail anyway.
What made you choose for ProRail 17 years ago?
To be honest, at that time I was called, and I was really intrigued by my future boss at that time. So at that time I was applying for jobs by the type of boss I could have, because I imagined that if I had the right bosses who were completely different than myself, I could learn a lot and develop myself. So that was the reason I came. But the reason I stayed is much more important. The reason I stayed is because of the combination of helping the Netherlands, helping society, in the combination with a very complex puzzle which needs really your intelligence every day to make it happen. And you can make the change. Sometimes it's difficult, but in this environment, if you go hard and you want to do it, you can really make a change. And that's what kept me there for 17 years now.
And what kind of boss are you?
That's a good question. It's a better question to ask other people. Is Ines still in the room, or? I see left the room just before this question, I think. But I try to be, I try to leave the work to the people. But what's very important, I am really interested in content. I want to understand the content, how we do it, what's happening. And that's kind of boss I am. And sometimes they like it and sometimes they don't like it. Sometimes they say, oh, stay away, let me do my work. But it's not to take over the work. But I think in this industry you need to be, you need to have a passion about trains, tracks, what's happening and how we make it happen with each other. At least that's the way I do my work. Yeah.
And do you have this passion about trains?
I do have this passion, yeah. And I do have the passion. Every morning when I travel by train most of the times and I arrive at Utrecht station and you see all these people. And we know in the morning we have 50% of the people traveling for work, we have them in the train. It's a huge responsibility, but it's also a huge passion to see that you can have this impact on society and be a small part of that. So that's what I like, yeah.
All right, nice. I'm very glad we had you here. I hope we'll have you again next time.
Yes, I will.
And thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for the interview.
All right.